Heyo everybody, Haku here with this week's episode of Tower of God Season 2, Kami no Tou Ouji no Kikan. We're at episode 9, and we're getting pretty close to the end of Core 1. I said after last week I wasn't really sure about continuing to do reactions, so I called this a reaction. Last week was more discussion than reaction. A couple of the episodes have been. There have been a lot where it's like I haven't had too much to actually say during the reaction itself, so we'll see how things go this week. But either way, I'm excited to have fun with it. Even though, last week's episode wasn't very good, episode before last wasn't very good, the adaptation as a whole, pretty not good. Overall, as an anime, I've been watching a lot of anime recently, trying to get back into it, do more reviews, and it's below average, but it is pretty mid overall. Like, a below average anime is still mid compared to, and even pretty solid compared to like the Western shows you might be dealing with. But even though it's not been good, I still want to have fun with it. I've said every single week that I've already read the manhwa, and if you're an anime only watching this, you really should read. You're going to get a much better experience reading. The adaptation has not been very good. And, it's difficult. I don't want to just sit and say, oh, something's awful, something's terrible, something's the worst thing ever. I don't want to come here just to complain or anything, but it is pretty wild, pretty crazy how low quality this is when it was announced so long ago, which is something that we don't even get for anime that often, that we had so much marketing going into it from a bunch of different Western companies like Crunchyroll and IGN, I think, and it was on, wasn't it announced at like the Game Awards or something weird? I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember being like, it's so weird they announced season 2 of Tower of God there. It's weird how low quality it is. It's weird how not good it is. But yeah, it's been not great. And last week's episode was the first one that kind of went outside of the usual Tower of God fandom space that I am in, and I saw people that are just, sort of anime fan accounts, or not really strictly Tower of God stuff. This is the first time that I saw them being like, wow, did you see that one scene where there's like the fireballs and the 360 camera and it just looks really, really bad? This is the first time I saw like wider, just general anime accounts talking about, wow, did you hear about the adaptation for this manhwa? This anime is not very good. And it hurts to see, because some of this stuff is some of the best stuff in Tower of God, which is, very easily you could argue it's my favorite, like, series of all time. But yeah, though this hasn't been good, I'm still excited to see where it goes. I'm still gonna just stick with it for now unless it gets like terribly bad. But again, I said it was mid before. It's in this place. I mentioned it at the end of last week's reaction. It's in this place where it's not so bad that I can just point and laugh at it, nor would I really want to. I'd rather just make positive content. I'd rather just take the many, many things that I like and do videos on those things in lieu of this, if that were the case. But it's not bad enough just to sit around and shit on it, but it's certainly not good enough to praise. It's certainly, again, it's below average. So that's part of the reason why I'm like, I don't know about continuing these videos or not. But either way, with all of this waffling out of the way, let's just see what they gave us this week. We're starting off back with this Kun and Emily scene. This is a good thing to start the episode back with again. I've always really, really liked Cassano's design. I really, really, really like the way they're doing the backstory so far. Seeing the clock on the wall just made me kind of question. I guess we have seen a clock like that before, though, in the test with Yuhan Sung. But it's like, why would the tower have clocks that run on like an Earth 24-hour cycle, God, Oryang is such a good character. I freaking love him. Medox's design looks really good for the anime. Everything this week has looked like such a step up from the past two. It is interesting how they made the they didn't focus as much on the devil in the flask in the anime, and they also didn't make it look as alive as it did in the manhwa. Man, this is like such a good scene from the manhwa too. I really love this scene. Like him seeing the ceiling and snow and feeling beauty for the first time. Just dead. That's so good. I love the little like slice of life scenes. That's one thing that I really think that benefits from being animated and having the voice acting be really good. I feel like for some of the bad parts of the anime, it makes me really sad most of all that such a good voice cast was wasted on it. It is a little odd though, and a little sad that we can spend the time extending this out when we kind of skimmed over or skipped over some really important character stuff in the first 4 episodes. I think it works including it for Zygena for this to like further carry along this Horyang storyline, but also just because it's like, oh well, he had to have healed after that attack from Yurik anyway, so it's like a way of explaining him healing from that. I think that the inclusion of that there, like in hindsight from all we've seen aside from it, is actually a good thing. The action does feel a bit like slow and flat, which is something that gets me worried for like the future when there's like way more fighting in action. It did look much better than the past few episodes though. Oh yeah, now I just remembered we added that rice ball scene, but we skipped Jin Sung's backstory, which is something that people were complaining about. We added that scene, but we skipped the extra floor arc, and the extra floor arc is something I was really looking forward to in the anime. So it's like, man, it sucks that we skipped some of this stuff. I like that they're leaving in like all of this character stuff this episode. This is really good. The bird flu. I like this too, that we're having this scene explaining why Gyeteng can't come with them, instead of just a one-off line like in the manhwa. Go throw some spear bearer. That is such a good line. Okay, well, that is easily the best episode so far. Like, it's not close. It's not close at all. That was actually really good. Like, if I hadn't seen the previous 8 episodes, and you just gave me this, and it's like, oh, this is what the Tower of God anime is, I'd be like, that's really good. Like, everything that was in the source material was adapted very well here. Plus, we got new scenes. I love the scene at the end of Kun deciding who he's going to take with him. It hypes you up for the next episode that, okay, Kunran and Novik are going to be a part of this arc. And it explains like why Gyeteng can't come with them, instead of just the line of, oh, everybody else couldn't come because Dan had to watch Rachel and Gyeteng was sick. And having an actual scene showing us that instead of just a one-off line is really good. I love the extra scenes of just them with the rice balls and stuff. Again, I could complain a little bit in the sense that, oh, why is this included this episode, but other things weren't included in past episodes? But again, if those other things were included in past episodes, I can't count that as a knock against this episode. And what I've talked about time and time again, when I've talked about the season 2 of the anime so far being below average, but not being good, if you've been watching these reactions every single week, I preach about direction. And a great example is, so right now I am watching Blue Reflection Ray, and its animation does seem like on the lower budget side, but it's still really gorgeous most of the time, just because when they use a bunch of still frames, the still frames look really good. Though the animation is a bit on the simpler side, the direction and the choices of shots, how the shots are paired with the music, All of that is very, very good there, and that is what Tower of God Season 2 has been missing. The music seems to randomly come in and out at times. The lighting looks really, really plain. The, shots, even if they're still, we don't get a lot of still shots. There's a lot of movement, but the movement just doesn't look good. I would want more still shots, but have those still shots be detailed and look really good than to have things move but look janky or look very, very plain and simple. And that's been the problem. Some things in the past. I think also when you've read a manga and then you watch the anime adaptation of that manga, there are so many times when you're like, oh, this is that panel and this is that panel. We have panels recreated for the anime. But Tower of God hasn't been doing that. It's been doing the opposite. We have these really good panels when they first meet on the 20th floor, and Horyang and Akraptor going in for that attack, and Veal gets in between them with his arms crossed or whatever, and it looks really cool. We didn't do that. We just had an explosion between them. We have the really good shot. It's one of the most iconic shots in Tower of God for years and years and years. That was on every home page or whatever for anything Tower of God. That was what would be up on the banner for Webtoons or wherever was hosting it. The shot of Veal standing there with the wavy fading into black and blue arms, and they got rid of that shot to have him holding his hands in front of himself and throw in some Jujutsu Kaisen lightning effects. And from there, we have something I complained about where there's this shot when Karaka's just Pokken, go make another team for Viol or whatever, and it's just him facing the side. We get a side profile shot of him with Pokken behind him, and Pokken is just this wispy black mass. And instead of recreating that, we have this junky room, Karaka standing there. Karaka's more cartoony, less detail. Pokken is just a blob instead of being this cool, wispy shadow. And again, if they would have recreated that shot from the manhwa, but had it just a still frame and Karaka's voice actor going, Pokken, go make a new team, that would have been better looking than what we got, where it was just way oversimplified, way uglier than the original shot. And that's happened a lot of times in the anime so far, where instead of recreating really good shots, they give us an equivalent that's different but worse. It's not different but better. Even some of the shots of Mizuno that they recreated just looked worse than the manhwa looks. When Mizuno, there's the two rankers that are there with Noma, and he fires these two blasts, and the two blasts warp between each other like a helix and then hit the two rankers and pass by Noma, leaving him unscathed. But instead, those two just charge at him and he blows them away instead, and it just looks a lot worse in the anime. There's so much of that where they just last week when we have these really great, I don't know if I'd necessarily want to say iconic shots, but the shot of Quattro with his hands out and the three bangs of Shinsu, and then it cuts immediately to the shot of Viol with just 5 lights, the 5 bangs of Shinsu around him. And that's a really, really good shot. Instead of really recreating those shots, we got new, different, uglier shots instead. But here, I feel like a lot of the stuff outside with Horyang and Viol, I could point to those things and I could be like, wow, that looks like a shot, that looks like this shot, that looks like this shot, that looks like things recreated from the manhwa itself, and it looked a lot better. And the lighting this episode, I don't know if they somehow swapped out directors or if they had more time to work on this one, but the direction here was so much better. It was paced out very, very well. A lot of the shots of the Horyang backstory were really good, and again, felt just like shots from the manhwa. Again, like I've been saying the entire time, while I've said the direction's bad, while I've said the visuals have been bad, while I've said the use of the music has been bad, all of that wasn't true of this episode. But one thing I've praised the entire time is how good this voice cast is. This voice cast has been incredibly good. And so to have finally this episode, the animation's not the best I've ever seen or anything, but it was good to have, it was solid. It wasn't bad at the very least. And that's important. To have some solid visuals, some good direction finally with this amazing voice cast finally gave us a really good episode in my opinion. Yeah, I think everything with the backstory was done well. I love the stuff that was done with I love the stuff that was done with the little slice of life moments between the characters, because I think that stuff is really important to what's going on here. And I thought that they really nailed everything they needed to nail. Some of the extra shots they threw in are very good. Again, having Horyang closing his eyes and seeing the night sky or night ceiling, and closing out his eyes and seeing the sight of the snow falling when he first thought that like life in the world was beautiful for the first time, and then blinking back in reality, him while he's walking in the manhwa, again, if you're anime only for whatever reason watching this, in the manhwa, he's like sailing off on this little speeder thing, but instead here they have him walking away, and it gives him time. He's looking at the photo of Cassano on his pocket, and I think that's a good detail to add. Like, all of this, and he might have been doing that while he was going away on the speeder or whatever, but either way, it doesn't really matter that much. I just think that having him slowly walking by himself, looking at the photo, envisioning the sky, or again, ceiling, all of that I think was really well done. And some of just the direction this episode was good. Some of the added stuff was good. And that's what I've talked about when it came to previous episodes, because really I said the animation looked a lot better, but it's really a situation where I feel like it could have always looked like this. It's not that it had more frames, it's not that it had more particle effects, it didn't have any of that. What it benefited from was that even though the animation was probably of the same par before, they just acted like they had no idea what they were doing with shots and with lighting. But this episode, they did know what they were doing with shots and lighting. And for the same studio, for the same animators, I feel like they put out a much better product for it. So I guess that's about it. Again, shots like Maddox like in the dark and then stepping forward and seeing him brought into the light was really good looking. I do think one thing with the Devil in the Flask, again, they didn't focus on that as much. In the manhwa, again, he, like, Horyang describes it a bit more, where he's like, it undulated and you could tell it was alive. It seemed really sketchy and everything. And you could tell, even though it didn't look like it had a physical body, it basically looked like living Shinsu. It looked more dragonish. It looked like some devious creature, whereas here it just kind of looked like Shinsu floating around. It looked less alive here. I guess if I have any criticism, it's that. But yeah, I don't have much to complain about. I am worried. I feel like they have, 10, 11, 12. If we're doing 12 episodes instead of 13, which I think we are, I'm not sure if we know how many episodes we're getting, I think we have plenty of time to do the rest of the pre-workshop battle stuff. We have plenty of time with 3 to 4 episodes, even if it's only 3 episodes, so they don't need to rush. They don't need to go crazy on the pacing. They don't need to leave things out and skip things. But I am still a little bit worried that they will. I'm a little bit worried because, again, even the action, I mentioned it during the reaction, looked a bit weightless, a bit kind of like it wasn't the best thing ever. But again, I would absolutely take the animation for the action this episode over any of the previous episodes. I think this was the best by far, even though it was still pretty mid. But that has me worried because, again, I don't think it'll be spoilery to say that they keep saying we're going to the workshop battle and stuff. Next core has already been announced to be a workshop battle. So when we do get Tower of God workshop battle, you can tell by the name, it's kind of a tournament arc. So there's going to be a lot of action. For an entire 12, 13 episodes that are going to be mostly action, and for how the previous 8 episodes here, the action has been extremely subpar, what are they going to do? Like, if they don't step it up somehow, if they don't, get their stuff together, how on earth are they going to be expected to deliver on Workshop Battle? And, even if the rest of the series, the rest of the season carries on with the level of quality that this episode was, I will be very much happy that it carried on with this quality. But compared to the manhwa, it will still be disappointing. Compared to what we could have got, it will still be kind of like a 7 out of 10 type of deal, because Tower of God, especially this portion of the story, Season 1's good and all in the manhwa, and the anime didn't live up to how good Season 1 is. So if you thought Season 1 of the anime was good, the manhwa is even better. And Season 3, it's hit and miss. Some people love it, some people hate it. Most people are kind of in between. They love and hate certain parts of it. Season 3 is hit and miss. The later you go into Season 2, the more you're going to get that. The later you go into Season 2 of the manhwa, the more you're going to get people that love it, people that hate it, people that are in between. But when you get to early Season 2, when we're talking about Return of the Prince, I don't know anyone who doesn't love this stuff. I don't know anyone who reads the manhwa and doesn't come out of the 20th floor being like, wow, Untrustworthy Room was really, really good. But there were a lot of people who came out of the first 4 episodes of the anime thinking, wow, that wasn't good. That was a step down from season 1, which is something that I don't think I've ever heard from a manhwa reader in my life. I've been reading this like over 12 years, and I don't think, over 13 years, and I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that. Ever. So that's a big failure. And then I kept seeing the cope. Oh, well, that's because they're saving all their budget for Flower of Zygena. To me, Flower of Zygena, a lot of people always hype it up. To me, Flower of Zygena has never been as good as Untrustworthy Room. But, you know, where'd that cope get ya? Because they didn't save the budget for that. The Flower of Zygena stuff is probably the worst looking stuff so far. Like Flower of Zygena and last week's episode are probably the worst looking stuff. But again, that's something that pretty much everyone, even though I said it's a step down from Untrustworthy Room, I still love it. Everyone loves the Flower of Zygena stuff that reads, and then everyone goes into what we're going into now. Everybody goes into Hand of Arland or Devil of the Right Arm, and I think Devil of the Right Arm is one of the best arcs. Depending on how we're dividing arcs up, I could say it's maybe top 5, like in argument for top 1 or 2 in the entire series. I think Devil of the Right Arm is that good as an arc. I think that, especially when I watch manhwa reactions, the part I'm always most excited, I'm more excited to watch people react to Devil of the Right Arm than any other arc. So now we're gonna see how that looks in the anime. And what I'm getting at with all of this is that this stuff here, Return of the Prince stuff, to me, when I watch manhwa reactions and when I talk to anyone who's read the manhwa, while people are, like, throughout Hell Train, there are people who are hit and miss on arcs that I completely love. In Season 3, there are people that are hit and miss on arcs that I love. But no one's hit and miss on Return of the Prince. Every single person I've ever talked to loves every part of Return of the Prince. Same goes for Workshop Battle. Everybody seems to love Workshop Battle, and for good reason. It is that good. So even if the rest of the anime continues on with this level of quality, it doesn't change how not great the first 8 episodes were, and it, even if it carries with this quality, it doesn't live up to the manhwa. The manhwa is, again, this, I struggle to say Tower of God as a whole is like one of the best series I've ever read, because it has its low points. It definitely does. But those low points aren't until much later on. If we were to take, you know, everything after what we're getting this season out of it, if we're to only focus on this segment, if we're only focusing on Return of the Prince and Workshop Battle, Return of the Prince and Workshop Battle are some of the best things that I've read in shonen. So it's like, whatever they do here, even if they keep it this quality, it's not going to be at the level it deserves. Like, to me, it deserves just an insane, crazy, high-level adaptation, and this is just not it. Like, even if they keep it this quality, I will be happy that it stays at this quality, if it stays at this quality, but even then, I will always feel like Tower of God deserves more. So, that's where I'm going to end this week. Thank you for watching. Like if you did like the video. Comment down there to tell me what you thought of this week's episode, what you thought of my thoughts and reaction to it. Subscribe for more Tower of God, much more on the channel. Follow on Twitter if you want. If you want a link to the Discord server, just ask and I can give you a link. If you want a link to, wait, I just said that. If you want to help support the channel, drop a super thanks down below if you want to, or if you want to not just support the channel, help me keep making videos, but also get your name at the end of every video, get One Piece videos a bit early, then you can hit join down below to become a member. Go to patreon.com/Haku of the Tubes, or a link will be in the description to become a patron. Thank you so much to people who are already patrons and members. Thank you to Chosen Regular Evan Hawley, Magical Girls, FR Nono, Abyss Knight, JA, and the D-Band, Cheverton Students, David Langstaff and Folded Ghoul, Slayer Candidates, SG and Stan Cedar, and Pure Element, Pate Ardial. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you all next time.